Chijioke's hands were clammy as he walked toward Ifeoma after school. He had rehearsed 100 ways to tell her, but none of them seemed right. She smiled when she saw him. "You look like you've seen a ghost." He swallowed hard. "Ifeoma, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Her expression shifted, concern replacing amusement. "Okay, what is it?" Chijioke took a deep breath. "At the beginning, when I first started talking to you, it was because of a bet." Silence. Ifeoma's face went blank, as if she hadn't heard him correctly. "What?" Chijioke forced himself to continue. "It was stupid, and I regret it more than anything. But I swear, Ifeoma, everything after that, it was real. You changed me." She took a step back. "A bet?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. Chijioke reached for her hand, but she pulled away, shaking her head. "I can't believe this." Pain sliced through him as he watched her turn and walk away. He had done the right thing, but in doing so, he had lost the one person who truly mattered. Ifeoma didn't come to school the next day, or the day after that. Chijioke felt the weight of her absence in every empty seat, in every moment. He glanced at his phone only to find no new messages. When she finally returned, she didn't spare him a single glance. The worst part? Everyone knew. Somehow the story had spread like wildfire. Whispers followed Chijioke down the halls, people watching as if Ifeoma walked past him like he was nothing. Namdi smirked as he passed by. "Told you she'd find out." Chijioke barely heard him. The only thing that mattered was Ifeoma, and the fact that she was slipping further and further away. Ifeoma tried to focus on her studies, but the betrayal clung to her like a shadow. A bet. Chijioke had played with her heart, and she had fallen right into his trap. She felt humiliated, foolish, exactly what she had feared all along. Yet, no matter how much she tried to hate him, she couldn't forget the moments that felt real, the way he had changed, the way he had worked to earn her trust. Was any of it true? Chinwe, her best friend, sighed as she watched Ifeoma struggle. "Maybe you should talk to him." Ifeoma shook her head. "What's the point?" Chinwe hesitated. "Because if you don't, you'll never know if he really meant it." That night, Ifeoma stared at her ceiling, torn between anger and a tiny, dangerous hope. Did Chijioke deserve a second chance? Chijioke had never felt so helpless before. No amount of apologies could erase what he had done. Ifeoma wouldn't even look at him, and the worst part was knowing he had hurt her. He had to make things right. The problem was Ifeoma didn't want to hear him out, so Chijioke did the only thing he could think of. He wrote her a letter. Pouring his heart onto the pages, he told her everything. How the bet had started, how he had changed, how he had fallen for her long before he even realized it. Slipping it into her locker, he whispered a silent prayer. This was his last chance, and if she still walked away after this, he would have to let her go. Ifeoma found the letter the next morning. She almost didn't read it. A part of her wanted to crumple it up and throw it away, but something held her back, the need for answers, for closure. With hesitant fingers, she unfolded the paper. Chijioke's words were raw, filled with regret and honesty. He didn't make excuses, he didn't beg, he just told the truth, the whole truth. "I was a fool, Ifeoma. At first I thought it was just a game, but you made me see things differently. You made me want to be better, not because of a bet, but because of you. And I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed you to know." Her heart clenched. Was it possible that he truly cared? She wasn't sure, but for the first time since she had found out, she didn't feel just anger, she felt confusion. For the rest of the day, Ifeoma was distracted. Chijioke had avoided her gaze as if bracing for the worst, and maybe he should. But something inside her had shifted. After school, she found him sitting alone beneath the old mango tree, staring at the ground. Taking a deep breath, she approached. "Chijioke." His head snapped up, surprise flickering across his face. "Ifeoma?" She hesitated before speaking, I got your letter. Chijioke nodded, waiting, afraid to hope. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, she admitted. But I know one thing. You're not the same boy who made that bet. His eyes widened. You believe that? Ifeoma nodded slowly. It wasn't forgiveness, but maybe, just maybe, it was a beginning. Ifeoma didn't know what to expect after that conversation under the mango tree. She had acknowledged that Chijioke was different now, but that didn't erase the hurt. Trust wasn't something she could offer freely, not anymore, and yet something had changed. She didn't flinch when he walked past her in the hallways. She no longer ignored his presence in class. There were still walls between them, but they weren't as impenetrable as before. Chijioke noticed he didn't push, didn't ask for more than she was willing to give. Instead, he did what he had been doing since the truth came out. He stayed. It was in the small things, the way he greeted her in the mornings but never expected a reply, the way he offered his notes when she missed something in class, the way he never let anyone speak badly about her, even when he thought she wasn't listening. And if Ifeoma was listening, more than she wanted to admit. One afternoon as they left school, she found herself slowing her steps until he caught up beside her. He glanced at her in surprise. You okay? She hesitated, then nodded. Chijioke said nothing more. He just walked with her. And for the first time in weeks, it felt easy. The following weekend, Ifeoma sat at her desk, staring at her phone. Chinwe had invited her out, but for some reason, Ifeoma couldn't stop thinking about Chijioke. Before she could second-guess herself, she typed a message. Ifeoma, are you busy? The response came almost instantly. Chijioke, number what's up? She hesitated before replying. Ifeoma, want to get some ice cream? A pause. Then, Chijioke, are you sure? Ifeoma smiled slightly. Ifeoma, yeah, I think I am. Minutes later, they were sitting at a small roadside shop, the air filled with the scent of fresh waffles and melting chocolate. So, Chijioke said after a while, watching her carefully, what made you want to hang out today? Ifeoma licked her spoon thoughtfully. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to see if things could be normal between us. He nodded slowly. And? What do you think? She studied him, the way he looked at her with quiet patience, no expectations, no pressure. I think we might get there. Chijioke's smile was small but real. Then I'll wait. And somehow Ifeoma knew he meant it. The days that followed felt lighter, easier. Ifeoma still wasn't sure what she and Chijioke were to each other now, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like something she had to figure out right away. She let herself enjoy the small moments, sharing an inside joke during class, walking home together in comfortable silence, studying at the library without feeling like she had to guard herself. Chinwe noticed. You're smiling a lot more these days, she teased one afternoon. Ifeoma rolled her eyes, but she couldn't deny it. Maybe, just maybe, things were falling into place. One evening as they sat on a bench outside her house watching the sky darken, Chijioke spoke. Can I ask you something? Ifeoma glanced at him. Go ahead. He hesitated as if choosing his words carefully. Do you think you'll ever be able to trust me completely again? The question caught her off guard. She stared at him, unsure of how to answer. Chijioke sighed. I know I hurt you, and I know I can't rush anything, but I want to know if you see a future where we can be more than just almost friends. Ifeoma looked down at her hands. If he had asked her this weeks ago, she would have said no without a second thought. But now, I don't know, she admitted. But I do know I don't look at you the same way I did when I first found out. Chijioke's expression didn't change, but she could see the hope in his eyes. That's enough for me, he said softly. For now it was. Over the next few weeks, Ifeoma and Chijioke fell into an easy rhythm. They weren't exactly what they had been before, but they were something unspoken yet undeniable. The whispers at school had died down. People had moved on to new gossip, new distractions, but Ifeoma hadn't forgotten. and she knew Chijioke hadn't either. One afternoon, as they studied together in the library, she caught him watching her. "What?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. He shook his head, smiling slightly. "Nothing, just I still can't believe you gave me another chance." She thought about that for a moment. "Me neither." He chuckled, but there was something earnest in his gaze. "I meant it when I said I'd wait. No pressure, no expectations." Ifeoma met his eyes. "I know." For once, she wasn't scared of what that meant. The next weekend, Chinwe invited her to a small gathering at her house. Normally, Ifeoma would have declined. Parties weren't really her thing. But when she found out Chijioke would be there, she hesitated. "You're thinking about it, aren't you?" Chinwe smirked. Ifeoma rolled her eyes. "I just don't know if I want to deal with people staring." "No one cares anymore," Chinwe assured her. "And if they do, who cares? It's your life." That night, Ifeoma found herself at the gathering, surrounded by familiar faces. Music played in the background and laughter filled the air. And then there was Chijioke,